Welcome back to the Mental Performance Masterclass. I am your host, Nick Kleitch, and with me, per usual, is the owner of Lit Leadership and Performance, my co-host, Scott Litter. Scott, how we doing?
Fantastic. That's excited for another episode. It's going to be another good one, Nick.
Amen, amen. I feel like we shouldn't rank our episodes because all of them have their own unique power. It's been so great to talk about motivation this season. And just to kind of dive in for the listeners, this will be the end of season 2, episode 4 of the motivation season in which we have been talking. So if this is the first time you're hearing us, real quick, this is a mental performance masterclass. We talk about and detail all things mental performance. You're welcome to find us on our relative, social medias here. And I will just plug the website here, Scott. So litleadershipandperformance.com is a great place to find us on my YouTube channel as well. All that is to say, we've covered some self-talk. We've covered motivation. Not going to reveal season 3 yet. That's going to be a gift for those coming back. So thank you for tuning in. So as much as we've talked about motivation and a variety of, what motivation is, what motivational buttons look like, the alter ego effect for those that wanted to indulge, we've covered a lot of really good things, but we wanted to conclude this season, Scott, with a very grand view of life and to step way back and to say, quite simply, as we look at the duration of our life, we go through different stages. And different stages of life really, truly require different levels of motivation. And the way that I had kind of detailed this out for the episode is kind of a 5-piece life package here. So let's say high school is one, college might be another, and you can combine that with starting a family and just getting established in your career. Then we go to midlife and empty nesting, and then we conclude with retirement. So I'm sure there's some other nuances within that, but that's just our general parameters here. So what I wanted to do is, if you have any general thoughts about motivation and as it changes over life, feel free to share. But you also wanted to reintroduce a concept that we had spoken about in episode 1.
And I would just say, in my profession, I've had a chance to work with middle schoolers all the way through people that are in their 60s, 70s, right? So I've gotten to see motivation and try to help people be motivated and learn to be motivated at really all different stages of life. And so that's why I think this is a really exciting episode. And I think the things I'm going to mention real quickly here really impact people at all levels. And that's the 3 levels. And we mentioned that, one of the places that it's kind of written extensively about is in a book called Drive by Daniel Pink. And he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose as being the 3 keys to motivation.
Wonderfully said. Now, when you're a youngster, right, when you're in high school and college and maybe even starting a family a little bit, these things aren't as prevalent. And I say that because you're focused on kind of what's in front of you at that point of life. And so your motivation might be getting good grades, maybe finding a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a spouse, maybe competing in a college sport if you get the opportunity to do that. And so you're really just kind of taking life in. And so when you're hearing these words like autonomy, mastery, and purpose, you're kind of like, well, that sounds kind of fancy, but I don't know how that really fits in. But I think all of them are always present. It's just that we may not have a clear focus at that in that early stage of life. So in terms of just general motivation for maybe a high schooler or a college kid or young people starting a family, do you have any thoughts on how maybe autonomy, mastery, and purpose could be in their lives, maybe not as prevalent as when we get to other stages of life?
Well, I think you really see it. And I've had 3 kids and 3 step kids. And so I've seen them as I've raised my kids, when they get to that senior year of high school, especially, that's where I've really seen my kids wanting that autonomy, right? They don't want mom and dad telling them exactly what to do. They don't want us tracking where they're at, right? You're at that point, and that's healthy for them. They want to be doing their own thing. They don't want to be micromanaged by their parents any more than a young professional wants to be micromanaged by their boss at work. They want that autonomy. And so I think really a good way to think about autonomy is just think of the opposite of being micromanaged.
Yeah, it's a great reminder. And, if there is any high school kids listening to this, they're like, oh my gosh, I wanted that so bad. And I'm so glad that I have it. And then they'll find out it may change in definition a little bit later on. So yeah, and I think that when you start finding your footing professionally, and you start having to go work for other people, I think that's the next kind of evolution, if you will. Maybe though, to back up, I think there are some people in college that have a predestined career. Maybe they want to be a lawyer or doctor, and they kind of know from there that's where their takeoff point is. But I would say, just as a rule of thumb personally, it's when you really get out in the workforce where you decide if you really want to suffer and do something or go work for someone or what have you. So when you think about autonomy, mastery, and purpose as someone is getting into the workforce, getting an experience of going to work for someone, and then maybe doing a little bit of internal reflection of who they are, what they want to do with their life, some of the heavy hitting questions start to settle in your late 20s, maybe earlier for some, or maybe in your 30s for others.
Yeah, I mean, I know an insurance agent who's a friend of mine who's running an agency, and I know one of the benefits that he's giving his employees is autonomy. He's,
Mm.
instead of maybe a higher pay raise, he's giving that employee an opportunity to work from home a couple days a week. He's giving that employee some choice on what hours they actually work that may fit in with their schedule, with their family. So autonomy is actually a great benefit that I think not only could motivate your employees if you're trying to be a leader in a business, but also maybe it's something that you can give without maybe affecting your bottom line quite as much.
Absolutely. And then with that too, as we've talked about a little bit of discovering of self and discovering of career, I think the concept of mastery really starts to make its name here, because you do have to, if you want to be at an elite level, and anyone in their life knows someone that has made it to an elite level in one particular thing or another, you can't be dilly-dallying around. You have to commit to mastery if you really want to pursue that thing. Now, we hope that mastery can come along the lines of purpose. That's kind of the wonderful sandwich that can be created. But if you wouldn't mind, Scott, just commenting a little bit on maybe when you got into teaching, or friends or colleagues that you may know that you could kind of see them finding their spot, and then you kind of knew that's what they wanted to master or look into mastery at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with students. I mean, I was a math teacher, for example. When a student could really felt themselves getting better and better and better at a concept, that was motivating, right? They enjoyed the
Mm.
class. On the other hand, when they really couldn't see themselves learning, they couldn't see themselves getting better, that's a struggle. That's you see a lack of motivation. I think it's the exact same thing for adults. When we're in a profession and we're doing work that's meaningful work, and we can see ourselves continue to get better and better and better, that's motivating. The people that that you hear saying, "Yeah, I feel stuck. I'm stuck in this job. I don't know how to get out." And we're going to talk a little bit more later about change. But when they feel stuck, that usually means they're not seeing themselves progress. They're not seeing
Mm.
themselves become masters at whatever profession they're in. And I think that's very demotivating when you feel like you're not making progress forward.
Yeah, and this is a wonderful transition to. I will include midlife and empty nesting now, and then we'll kind of conclude with retirement as life goes that way. But we wanted to introduce a concept that I think is arguably one of the most influential ones of the season, and that is this idea of recalibrating your motivation. And so, what does that mean, right? That just means that as people go through life, it is rare, or maybe there's an individual that may bring this to their attention, where they really need to understand that they are either entering a new season of life or exiting a season of life. And when we do these, when we exit and enter, that is a wonderful time for us to recalibrate and ask the hard questions, right? What is our motivation level? Why do we want to do this? Are there other things we want to explore? Who am I? How have I changed? All of these things can be part of the recalibration process. And one might go, well, why would you want to do that, right? Why would you want to re-examine? And I think it's so you can successfully navigate these different stages of life, because asking the hard questions often lead us to the truth. So if there's any thoughts that you have, Scott, on the recalibration, I'd love for you to share.
I mean, it's just this idea that we're only here once, right? We're only here once. We get one life. And do we want to get to the end of our life and look back and say, yeah, I should have made an adjustment there. I should have recalibrated. I should have done something differently. And of course, none of us want to do that. And so I think, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to retirement, since that's where I'm at. I'm a retired teacher and instructional coach and athletic coach. And Right. And I worked for a couple of years for a wonderful company, Z Winning Mindset, doing mindset work and sales, and really, enjoyed the work I did with middle school, high school, and college athletes and coaches. But I decided to move on and create my own company because with my own company, I am extremely motivated. I've probably never been more motivated than I am now because I have autonomy in how I run that company and what I do day to day. I feel like I'm mastering, I'm working with a speaking coach to get better at public speaking. I feel like I am improving. I can feel myself getting better. And the third thing is purpose. I feel like I'm doing work that's meaningful and I'm serving other people every single day. And when you have those three, when you have all three, you can't help but feel motivated, and you have a reason to get out of bed every morning.
Oh, what a beautiful sentiment there. And I think, Scott, if you don't mind to use you as an example, the other note I'd like to throw in here is the encouragement. And you're encouraging yourself to find these things or to recalibrate it yourself. And you did love teaching. You wouldn't have had you not done it for as long as you did. But it's ironic that as you're moving through these stages of life, you're saying things to the effect of, I haven't felt this engaged, or I feel like the totality of autonomy, mastery, and purpose is truly coming together for you. So all of that is to say, if you haven't found it yet, you still have time. And maybe your gift may come in retirement when you least expect it. Could come before that, could come later in that. But the pursuit of trying to find these three things can really help you remain motivated or spark a fire in you, to find motivation in your life. So outside of that, any other comments before we get to the final piece of the episode here to conclude our season, Scott?
Yeah, I would just say live life, live every day like it's your last, because we don't know. We don't know. So grab life and live every day. And I think that's the best I can advise. Being a little bit older than you, Nick, a lot
Yeah.
older, let's say, is that it goes quick. Life is short. Love every day. Make the most of it. Don't be afraid to take a risk.
That's so beautiful. And the one thing we wanted to really drill down before we get out of here and conclude is one thing that we discussed was a prohibitor of this recalibration process is fear of change. And fear of change affects everyone. And there's a fear of change phenomenon, no matter how much pain there is to move on to or to recalibrate. So if you're hearing us and it sounds good and you're like, all right, I need to recalibrate, but you feel like you never get over the hump, if you will. Fear of change is likely what it is. It's a subconscious feeling where our brain is trying to keep us safe. And we like comfort. We like routine. We like knowing and getting the outcome that we can anticipate. And so when we're faced with these big decisions or transitions, fear of change is when it really rears its ugly head. So for those out there that have tried recalibration and may not think it works, or they haven't feel like they've gotten over the hump, fear of change is absolutely real, and it could be greatly affecting you as you're going through these transitions. So just know that it's normal. And on the other side of fear of change is truly potentially that greener pasture that's going to bring you the reward of having autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So final thoughts as we conclude season 2, motivation.
No, I would just say if you are struggling and you need some help with it, reach out to friends, reach out to mentors. If you don't have somebody, feel free to give me a call, reach out on my website. If you can find my contact information there. If I can't help you, I'll find you somebody that can. I really want to be here to serve our listeners.
Yeah, that's a beautiful sentiment. Sometimes we need a coach, and to bring this full circle, this is why someone would have a life coach or a performance coach or personal development coach. It's so we can help you ask those hard questions to say, hey, have you considered this angle before? Have you considered this? We personally love this work, but sometimes it's nice to have a third party that doesn't know you fully, challenge you a little bit, and then also encourage you as well too. So the last thing I'll say as we conclude the final episode of the Mental Performance Masterclass Season 2 is a reminder to all, and that is you are the driver and in the driver's seat of your life. Make sure you understand that that is your power and that is your control to be able to direct life where you want to go. And please take some time to kind of think through autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and hopefully you can find all three of them come together. So without further ado, I appreciate our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.